First up this morning, at just 19 years old, Laura Schwartz volunteered answering phones at the White House.
That's right. Then she climbed her way up the ranks to become White House Director of Events for the Clinton administration. Today, Laura joins us with her networking secrets to help us through the summer event season. She's a professional speaker, television commentator, and author of this book, Eat, Drink, and Succeed. You were on a little while ago, and I told you, I read your whole book. I love
you were just the best, Tiffany. And it's so great to meet you, Molly. I missed you last time.
Last time you were here, I think I was on vacation.
Well, that's why I'm back.
Yes, I love it.
Molly.
I love it.
Because whenever I'm home in Plymouth, Wisconsin, just north of here, I watch you girls, and it is so much fun. And by the way, after my last appearance, I don't think as many people have said since I was an alternate network, in the Piggly Wiggly, in the neighborhood, saw you on Morning Blend, saw you on TMJ. I mean, it was just you have a great show. It's really lovely to be back.
Thank you. Great to meet you finally. That's fantastic. I know Tiff loved meeting you and loved your book, like she said.
It was a fantastic book. I really think people can get a lot from it. But this is the time of year that people are going out to cocktail seasons. They're going to weddings. They're going to galas. They're doing all these things. What kinds of things can you teach people from your book, or just in general take away today so that they can make it more successful?
Yeah, it's a big season out there, from picnics to office parties to Summerfest to that beer truck that's going around Milwaukee today. I came up last night to Eat, Drink, and Succeed at Miller Park with some friends at Bear.
I was there too. I didn't see you.
Well, unfortunately, they didn't win.
I know.
Obviously.
I know. I have a friend who's at a lot of the games. He's like, every time you go, they lose. And it's like, I bring bad luck or something.
We were talking as we left the box last night. I said, well, at least we ate and drank a lot. It's always good to eat, drink, and succeed. And with the summer party season coming up, there are a couple things to keep in mind. I always tell people, ask yourself, is it cocktail talk or you're cocktail talking? Because
what's the difference?
Well, the difference is having one or two drinks, which is fine, relax, enjoy the conversation, but the 3 or 4 that get you into trouble. Because, jokes the next day aren't funny if you don't remember them.
Right.
Or if the water cooler talk is all about you. Because, even though you're not on the clock technically and you're out at an office picnic or what have you, if there are peers from the office around, hey, that's going to be discussed, and you never know when that next promotion comes up if that's going to be weighed and taken into consideration, because it will. So stay away from drinking too much when you're with your peers, especially.
Yeah, and you have some tips for having fun, so enjoying it without getting tipsy.
Oh, yeah,
right?
exactly. Hey, I always like to go up to the bartender, or I just have to really monitor myself, whereas like the first beer will be followed by a bottle of water, and then another bottle of water, and then I have to at some point just go all water. Or like I love vodka soda. So the first one, I go up to the bartender, I want a vodka soda, but after this I want them on the light side. You give them a little tip to start with, and then you're good for the rest of the night.
It's perfect. You kind of got an ally there at the bar for you.
Yes, and I tell you, bartenders are great allies. In fact, they know when to say, I thought you were switching to a lighter vodka.
Right. Yeah, they're keeping you honest, right?
How about for especially new graduates? There's a lot of people who just graduated, and they kind of walk this fine line between networking and stalking, especially when it comes to being online, whether it's finding people on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on different places. How do you know that fine line, especially when you're young and you're ambitious and aggressive?
I tell you, you frame it in such a great way, because, when we're out, when you cross that stage at graduation, you're not only taking your academic foundation, but your social foundation as well. But it's not going to be able to see how much you can drink at your happy hour or what you're going to post on Facebook. But when you RSVP to an event or you're going somewhere, ask around, see who else is going to be there. You can ahead of time go on their Facebook page, see what they're posting, see what's trending on their Twitter feed, see what's on their LinkedIn professional background. And that way, when you meet somebody, you can organically use that in conversation. Find your commonalities to start that foundation of a relationship. But don't start talking about their kids if you've never met the person before. Because that's just skeevy.
Creepy.
That is just creepy. That is crossing the line. But it's a wonderful way to walk in, especially to an organization or an event of which you're a party of one. And maybe you feel a bit lost, or you don't have that other one with you. So you can go in there a bit more confident, knowing maybe some kind of topic of conversation before you arrive.
I think that's great. You remind us of something that Larry King once said. He said, I never learned anything while I was talking, which is a fantastic quote. It's all about listening. And I'm surprised, especially at parties, how much people will spend talking about themselves.
Oh, isn't that something?
Right?
And it works well for us because when I talk about networking, I talk about it in the fact that it's all about finding out what you can do for someone else. Not what can you do for me or what can I get from you, but what can I do for you? Well, we don't really know what we can do for somebody unless we're listening to them. And it's a wonderful opportunity to gather information and start making those bridges and those connections in your mind that you can offer to them, because then it all comes back around you. So listening is a great asset. It also, quite honestly, can just be the best gift that you can give, because sometimes people just want to be listened to. And that way, if you recall it, then I like to make little notes on the back of business cards, and that way when you follow up and follow through, maybe send that thank you note, not even just an email, but also a little note as well, maybe an article of something that they talked about. It's your sort of way to kind of prove I was listening to you, and it leaves just an incredible impression.
Well, and don't you think then recalling it later and saying, oh, this is what we talked about, you look like like you have this great memory even if you don't.
Well, and I'll tell you another tip. I create something, and it's in the back of the book in a tear-out sheet. Instead of just entering somebody's information, like their email address, physical address, name and company, under the notes section, I know on my Mac there's like this little note section, I'll write in there who I met, what we talked about, do they have kids, what was going on, did they just move into the new job, whatever it may be, running their first marathon. And then the next time I do my research on who's going to be there and the name sounds familiar, I can just look them up in my contact book and I can see what we discussed. So when I see them that afternoon, I'll say, how's Jenna enjoying Michigan? How did the move go? And they're very impressed.
What is your +1 or +none rule? This is kind of an etiquette thing, right?
It is. Well, it's about the power of your date. And I tell you, it's either +1 or +none. Because first of all, before you bring a date, or just any guest, a friend, whatever it may be, you want to make sure that you're invited with one. Because the last thing you want to do is just show up with an extra person, especially if it's a business-oriented dinner and everybody's seated to a T.
Right.
And then number two, if you are invited with a date, bring the right one. You want your guest to add to the experience, not take away from it. And I have a feeling we've all dated guys that we've taken to great events, and they just are very upset when we don't have our attention on them all night and have all the conversation with them. So you want somebody who can hold their own while you're having a conversation with somebody else. And maybe somebody that even has a commonality with the event, that it's not just you're bringing a date, but you're bringing somebody that can also get something out of that event as well.
I think that's great. We're almost out of time, but for people who are entrepreneurs too, and they're having a networking event or a casual conversation, how are you able to turn it from casual into something that might benefit you? Is there like a switch? Because sometimes that switch can be awkward.
You're absolutely right, Tiffany, and that's such a good point. I like to make that jump to business after the event.
Good point.
So you can leave the conversation by saying, hey, let's continue this conversation over a lunch, or let's get coffee, or you know what, there's a great event next week that I think you'd really be interested in. Invite that person out, and then it has much more of a business context.
When people ask you, so we ran out of time, but if people ask you to coffee and you're really not interested, do you say no, or do you almost always, if you've met someone socially or at a business function, do you almost always say yes, at least for the first
It really
meeting?
depends. Sometimes you can say, you know, I'm really busy for a coffee, but why don't we do a phone call?
Okay.
And you can do like a 20-minute
nice.
call with somebody. That way you're still giving them of your time and whatever information you can share for them or shed the light on for them. And then, you know what? If it's really productive, have a coffee. But we all have to be mindful of our time at the same time, because we are multitaskers and you're dropping off and picking up and running here and there. So you want to be considerate of others' times, just as they'll realize that they have to be considerate of yours.
Great ideas. Great book, too. I want to make sure everybody knows how to get it. They can go to your website. It's lauraschwartzlive.com to get the book, Eat, Drink, and Succeed. Thanks, Laura.
Thank you.
Great to see you. Meet you finally. Great job. I love it. Well,